What does a community association do? How do I stay involved in local politics? Why does shopping local matter? Engaged Citizen is a field guide for those curious about changing the way they engage with their local community. Each episode examines a popular concept through expert interviews delivered in layman's terms. Welcome to Engaged Citizen, an informative docuseries inspiring the next group of engaged citizens.
My name is Tanner, and I'll be the host throughout this series. In 2019, my partner Jillian and I relocated to the windy city of Lethbridge, Alberta. After a 14-year stint in Calgary, I was looking for a more affordable home base so I could continue to professionally pursue my many creative endeavors. One of my stipulations when we decided to move cities was to become more involved in my community. Someone who contributed to the development of the neighborhood or town I was living in. I spent a portion of my life working as a touring musician. I ultimately relied on the kindness of strangers to get by. I had the opportunity to meet so many inspiring people across the country doing cool things for their communities. When I would return home to Calgary, I always felt like a deadbeat, someone taking from my city without providing anything in return. I tried volunteering at a variety of organizations, but nothing seemed to stick or feel like it was providing what I was looking for. In a lot of ways, I'm hoping this docuseries acts as a roadmap to how a city works and inspires you to get involved in some capacity. I hope it demystifies the process. I guess it's kind of what I wish I had when I started this journey.
This series takes place in Lethbridge, Alberta, a city of just over 100,000 people, according to the 2019 census results. It is located on Treaty 7 land in Blackfoot Confederacy territory. Lethbridge is a quote-unquote university town with a large student population. It's an agriculture and industry hub with warm summers, mild winters, and wind. It really is windy. Lethbridge has traditionally been a conservative stronghold that is juxtaposed by a strong arts community. While the series takes place in Lethbridge, I do believe the topics covered are completely transferable to most communities in Canada. In this episode, we're talking politics. Well, we aren't going to pick any sides, but we are going to take a stab at explaining the three levels of politics, municipal, provincial, and federal, and how these different types of government all affect how we live and coexist in the places we call home.
First off, here to explain the three levels of government is my 9-year-old cousin, Jackson. Let's start with municipal politics. When we say municipal, we just mean the government representing the city of Lethbridge.
Municipal just means local, like the city councilors.
So municipal government in Lethbridge is made up of councillors and a mayor.
Right, we have 8 members of the city council, or 9 including the mayor.
So they have lots of meetings to try to discuss issues in the city and allocate funds. So for example, how much money goes to the library.
Here is Lethbridge councillor Belinda Croson to tell us what she does.
Can you explain the role of a councillor?
So councillors are basically the representatives of the community. We are elected every 4 years, and our job is to come here and on behalf of the community make decisions that oversees the governance of the city of Lethbridge. Both as a corporation, so we are the board of directors for the corporation, but we're also those community representatives who vote on behalf of the community on various decisions.
How do you represent Lethbridge in your job?
You know, of course, we can always and should always try to do it better, but I try to be as open and honest as possible. So one of the things is I have my Facebook page, which is my council Facebook page. And I try to post every time there's a meeting on there what's going to be discussed to try to get people interested. I talk about how I may have voted. I talk about the issues on there. So I really try to make sure that people have no lack of knowledge of what's happening here, because they should know. So this agenda is coming up, this will be discussed, and as much as possible have those conversations. I share information on, fun articles going, this is happening in this community, what do you think? I share my frustrations, I share my ideas. I don't think anybody who follows my Facebook page doesn't know that I think property taxes are the most illogical way of funding a community, and yet that's the way we fund a community. So I try to have those conversations because people are smart, they understand, and they can sense what's happening if you have those conversations.
Can citizens get in touch with you? And if so, when is it appropriate to do so?
That's one of the things. There's many channels that ways citizens can get in touch with me. Some do through my Facebook page, through Twitter, email, phone calls, etc. They can also access our 311, who can redirect them to counselors. There's various ways. Erica, our counselor's assistant, is amazing at finding us. So absolutely, that's our job, is to be there. Remember, of course, we also have lives. It might take us a while to get back to you. We're still considered a part-time job, so it might take a while for us to get back to you. But people have various ways that they can get in touch with members of council and should get in touch with members of council. But if it's an operational thing, that's the beauty of 311. If you have a pothole, calling 311 will get it fixed faster than calling city council. If you want to understand the strategy and the bylaws and those things, get in touch with council.
Provincial government is in the middle. This is the government of Alberta.
They meet at the Legislative Assembly in Edmonton.
That's their headquarters.
Right. So in Alberta, we have 87 electoral districts. In Lethbridge, we have 2, which means we have 2 seats in Lethbridge.
So we call local politicians councillors. What do we call people who work at provincial level?
Well, good question. We call them MLAs, or Members of Legislative Assembly. Here today, representing Lethbridge West from the Alberta NDP caucus, we have Shannon Phillips.
And here she is to help us explain what she does.
So we have provincial representatives. There's 87 of us across the province, and your provincial government is responsible for your healthcare, education, most of the roads you drive on, most of the funding that goes into the city or town you live in or the rural municipality, social services, and most of the services that you interact with on a daily basis are at least in whole or in part funded and governed by the provincial government. So while the province funds municipalities and people understand municipal government as the closest to people, the fact is that most of those services trace their way back to the provincial government in some way, shape, or form.
How do you represent Lethbridge through your job?
Well, I think when you're 500 kilometers away from the capital, it's just natural, regardless of who's in government, that sometimes our priorities will get left out. And we're not, the gateway to the north. We're not Edmonton with a large petrochemical and, value-added and, oil and primary production of oil and gas all around Edmonton and into the north. We're not Calgary, which, of course, is the center of commerce for the province. We're not either of those things. We're not a big city, but we're not a small town either. And so as small cities share a number of things in common, whether it's Grand Prairie, Red Deer, Medicine Hat, or Lethbridge. But Lethbridge is unique in that it has 2 post-secondary institutions. It has a large public service. It serves as the regional hub for healthcare for Southern Alberta. For example, seniors care as well. And with the presence of those post-secondary institutions, there's also a presence of research and development for both the public and the private sector. There's a federal agriculture research station, all of these things here that make it a bit of a unique center. It also means that we have a more diversified economy. So we're not subjected to a lot of the roller coaster that the rest of Alberta is often. But it also does mean that in some years we don't grow as quickly, like during the boom years of the oil and gas boom. but it also means that in non-boom years, the economy in Lethbridge sort of ticks along. What that's meant for the last few years is a really, really rapidly growing city. One of the fastest growing cities in the country in terms of our school age population, for example. So that means different kinds of growth pressures, right? From an aging population on the one hand, but also little kids and young families. And that means all kinds of different services at the other end of life, if you will.
And the federal government is the highest level of government.
This is true. And they work in a parliament in Ottawa. And they make decisions based on all of Canada.
So who from Lethbridge goes to these meetings?
Well, we have one person in Lethbridge that fills that role, and that role is called an MP for short, or Member of Parliament. Our MP in Lethbridge is named Rachel Thomas.
Here she is to talk about what she does.
For me, I view my role as being one that is focused on representation. And when I consider what that means, I think it's two parts. I think one, it requires listening, and two, it requires action. What are you going to do with what you heard? So for me, to listen, I often think of posture. I think of leaning in. I think of being close. I think of being engaged, maintaining eye contact with someone, really trying to understand their story or their concern, whatever it is that they're bringing to me. And it might be an individual, or it might be even a group within the community that's bringing something. And so my goal there is to really actively listen and understand. The second part of my job then is, what am I going to do with that? What am I going to do with what I heard? And that's where I have a responsibility to take action. And so sometimes that looks like writing a letter to a minister. Sometimes that looks like making a phone call. Sometimes it looks like giving a speech in the House of Commons or bringing a study forward at committee. There's different actions that can be taken that hopefully serve the individual or the group or my entire constituency, well. Ultimately, as the Member of Parliament, that's my job. My job is to make sure that their voice is represented in Parliament, to make sure that their concerns are taken care of to the best of my ability.
And how do you represent Lethbridge through your job?
I think there's a few ways that I look to actively engage with the constituents of Lethbridge. Again, ultimately, it comes down to relationship. I think it's awfully hard to represent people if you don't know them. Now, I can't get to know every single one of my constituents. Mm-hmm. There's about 125,000 of them. I'd love to, but it's probably not going to happen. And so, if we're being really realistic, to the best of my ability, I do want to understand their concerns. I do want to understand how they think. I want to understand what's important to them. And so I think there's a few ways of doing that, whether it's hosting a town hall where everybody is welcome to come and ask their questions or express their concerns. I think that's really important to do on a regular basis. Or maybe it's hosting a round table for a particular group. So for example, a round table with, organizations in the community of Lethbridge who work with those that live with a disability, for example. Or maybe it's a round table like I did a couple of weeks ago with organizations that work with immigrants in our community. And so it's hearing those voices and then being able to represent them well. I think, just today I had the opportunity to meet with a group of young people. So I have a board, it's called a Youth Advisory Board. It's 8 young people who applied to be a part of it. It's totally nonpartisan. There's multiple viewpoints represented at the table, and we engage in robust discussion. And so it's a chance for me to really get to know young people in our community and understand how they think. It's also an opportunity for them to go out and talk to their peers and bring those voices back to me so that I have a chance to listen and really, again, understand, their thinking and hopefully be able to advocate for them in our nation's capital.
So if it's anything that is municipal, so if you're looking at, garbage, recycling, if you're looking at water, electrical, if you're looking at how we're growing, which, development projects are going, and if you want our city to be more dense, if you want things like that. If you have questions about transit, anything like that, contact us. But if you're looking at healthcare, you're looking at education, that's the province. If you're looking at federal ones, we'll direct you on. We do work with our MLAs and our MP, so we can help you direct. But I remember very soon after I got elected, 5 years ago, someone called me and asked me to make sure that Calgary couldn't have the Olympics. So we had a fun conversation about jurisdiction, about I might have an opinion, I don't have a role in that conversation, in that decision. So that was providing then the proper people for her to contact and to talk about her issues. So that's the other role of council, is to know if we don't have the answer, who do you need to talk to? When it comes down to it, the residents of Lethbridge vote provincially and they vote federally as well. These are all part of, the residents are all part of the different levels of government. So telling them that it's not our business because it's somebody else's isn't really helpful when the resident calls you. Trying to get them to the right person, trying to get them that help however you can, even if you can't solve the problem, getting them to the problem solver is vital.
How does municipal politics interact with provincial and federal levels?
So there's 3 orders of government, and the other 2 orders have very distinct jurisdictions. And then under the Municipal Government Act, we're given our jurisdiction by the province. And our role is to be the local government. And the fascinating part about the local government is we interact more with the public than any other order of government. From the time you turn on your electricity in the morning to the time you flush the toilet at night and all the way in between, chances are you've interacted multiple times with the municipality. And as the municipal government, our role is to make sure all that works properly for you.
For me, it's super important to be engaged with my municipal counterparts and my provincial counterparts. So what that looks like for me then is taking opportunity to pick up the phone, have a phone call, have a conversation about the issues that you're seeing matter. It looks like showing up to maybe a town hall that's being hosted by the MLA or by town council. It looks like, for me, I meet with all of the municipal leaders once every year in order to make sure that I understand their priorities and how I might be able to partner with them in those. It's just really important to me to make sure that we keep that relationship vibrant. I think as well, it looks like partnering on different initiatives, whether that's funding initiatives for infrastructure or maybe it's a social concern. So for example, in the city of Lethbridge right now, homelessness is a big deal. Overdoses are a big deal. Addiction is a big deal. And so, we have a working group that's come together between the province, between the band council, between the city council, and then myself. And so we're looking to work on this and to come up with solutions and hopefully be able to serve the community from all 3 levels of government and also from an Indigenous perspective.
Do you have any suggestions on how people can become more aware or involved in the political system?
There's so many ways they can do it. One of the things, our council meetings and our committee meetings are streamed. So you can either watch them live as they're happening or you can watch them later. So there's an access there. You can follow along. Our city clerk's department does an amazing job of tweeting about what's coming up. So if Twitter is more your thing, if people are still on Twitter, there's something that you can absolutely go to. We have council chambers. People can come in and listen. It's not always easy. It's usually 1:30 in the afternoon, so you have to find the right time, but you're welcome to come. Read up on things. Find out what's happening. Invite councillors to meetings of your organization. Try to get us involved and out there. There's ways that you can do it, and I'm sure there's many more if people want to get in touch with us and say, what about this, what about that? We'd love to hear it. One of the great joys is when we bring grade 6 classes through, we get to have conversations with them. But if there's other groups who want to have those same conversations, just reach out.
Just this morning, we met with a family who has concerns about their adult child who lives with a permanent disability and the types of services that they are able to access. For example, it gave me a very good sense of where the gaps are in those services and what kinds of changes are always needed. All of these programs need to change over time, and we don't have a sense of how to do that or what kinds of things that we should be proposing in terms of changes unless we talk to people. I door knock all the time. Last week I talked to a woman who works in labor and delivery who is really, really concerned about the level of safety for pregnant and birthing women. and their babies due to a lack of doctors. And I would not have gotten that first-hand account had I not been standing on her doorstep asking her for it. Every day that I interact with constituents, whether it is they write to me about the things that are most on their minds, for example, a shortage of physicians here in Lethbridge, for example, or services available to children with disabilities. Every time I do that, I have a better sense of what this community needs. You do want really strong municipal governments, really strong school boards that can advocate for we need new schools, we need new services, etc. You do want that, but you don't want that to take the place of ordinary people organizing themselves into small groups to advocate for themselves and what this community needs.
I think one of the challenges that all of us have as elected officials is engaging with those that maybe don't want to engage. How do you access their voices? How do you show that you care about them? How do you understand, the conversations that are taking place around their dinner table? I think you try every mechanism possible. Ultimately, though, Canadians have a responsibility to engage. They have to make a choice. So, for me as an elected member, it's my responsibility to provide avenues in. It's the public's responsibility to take them. So you can access me through social media. You can access me through email. You can access me through a telephone call. You can come into my office. You can come to a town hall. You can come to a round table. I'm at more than 100 events in our community every year. I'm happy to meet with people one-on-one. I host events for Canada Day. I host an awards event in the fall. I host an open house at Christmas time. I go to seniors' residence in December and visit pretty much every single one of them in order to be accessible to those who might, have mobility issues, for example. That's my job. My job is to make myself accessible. It's the job of my constituents then to reciprocate, to show up, to take an interest. And I think I do my best to encourage that by being approachable. I want to have a listening ear. I want to be attentive to the needs of my constituents. I want to, promote what's going on by sending mailers, for example, to every single household in the constituency on a quarterly basis, and where I'm able to provide them with information, but also again provide an avenue in should they wish to engage. So it's a two-way street, democracy, and again my job is to reach out and to make myself available, and the job of constituents then is to reciprocate and to take those avenues that are provided and to have a voice and to be active and engaged, and hopefully together we're able to build a great country.
So, are the 3 levels of government any more clear to you now, Jackson?
Well, I guess it's kind of like the levels of people who run my school. Like if it's anything to do with learning, my teacher comes up with that plan. And if it's anything to do with how my school runs, that's my principal who comes up with that. But the school board makes all the decisions on how all the schools run in our division.
All 3 levels of government try to help us citizens, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal, and they strive to work together to create a better country. Thanks for your help, bud.
No problem.